preaching from my computer too. And she asked me to stay on the theme of the heart has its reasons. So I'm still talking about roots. Today we're talking about the invisible roots. So the way I like to think about it is when a tree first starts to sprout, before it even sprouts its first little leaf, it's growing its first root. And those roots have been there from the beginning, and they will go down the deepest and the farthest, and they're so far down there that you don't know that they're there. And that's what I'm talking about today in the realm of attachment styles, which is something that I only learned about this year. You guys might know about it, but it's, I think, something to do with psychology. I don't know. It's basically a pattern that you carry with you into relationships that's instilled in you from a young age. So things that you experience in your childhood that form into thought patterns that you had no choice in forming, and then they carry on into your relationships and how you treat other people. So I'll start with some backstory. For a lot of my life, I was very apathetic, which is lacking in emotion. Empathy is giving all you have into emotion. You can feel what another person is feeling. Apathy is the disconnected emotion. And I prided myself in not being overtaken in emotion and grounding everything in logic. And I thought I got a lot of, she's weird, and get that weird little freak away from me, or whatever. It wasn't very heavy, but it was, people thought I was strange, and I looked at them and I thought, you're strange. So I started on a search to try and understand who people were, how they thought, why they thought they liked that, and I was like, these people don't know anything. Why are they so upset at me? Like, they don't understand that I'm clearly the right one. And then I started digging deeper, and I was like, I think I might be the weird one. But you know what? I considered it blissful ignorance. I didn't need to know about emotions, and I was happy living in that. It wasn't until I started to grow up and my emotions grew with me, and suddenly I was this explosive, super anxiety, had no way to ground myself. I didn't understand why I had so many emotions in me, and they were coming out all at once. I was like, I never had anything, and now I have all of them. And it took me off guard. It was starting to frustrate my boyfriend at the time, and he said, okay, you need to go to therapy. I was like, fine, I'll go to therapy. I'm not a therapy person, but you want me there? I'll go there. So he booked the appointment for me, and I went there, and I was like, nothing's wrong. I'm just a little emotional, whatever. And she started to ask me questions, and 5 minutes into her asking me questions, I started crying, and I didn't understand why. I was just couldn't even get my words out, and she was like, okay, I see you're a little stressed. Let's try and find, where all this is coming from. And she would ask me questions like, has this ever happened in your life? Have you experienced any trauma, or in the past 10 years, whatever? And every single question she asked me, my answer was no. I said, no, that was fine. I had a pretty happy childhood. My mom loved me. No, I'm good. And she was like, okay, well, you're bawling in front of me. You're not good. And I was like, I'm sure I am. Nothing traumatic has happened to me in my life. And one day, I stumbled upon a Christian radio station that was really random, and they were talking about, I don't listen to the radio, so I don't know how it came on, but they were talking about how children, when they're young, experience traumatic things, and it's during their key points in their life where their brain is developing, they're making new connections constantly, and they experience things that as adults we don't see as traumatic. We don't think they're traumatic. They're fine. When you grow up, you might look at your past and be like, that was not traumatic. But to the child who's never experienced it before, it's a very harrowing experience, whatever it might be. And they form traumatic experiences even though they're minor things. And this is running more rampant in our day now with unsupervised media, things like that. Kids are getting on their YouTube Kids, and they're going on these rabbit holes, and then suddenly, 30 minutes in, they're on a video that has nothing to do with what they started with. And now they're viewing things that you don't know they're viewing, and it's forming bonds in their heart, connections in their brain that you normally wouldn't introduce them to. They don't know what is right and wrong, and you need to filter that for them. And that was a little side tangent, but that's kind of the idea of traumas forming when you're young. But basically she told me, hey, come back to therapy, bring someone with you to support you, and we can go over this again with someone there. Long story short, she was a poor therapist, and it didn't end well, and we ghosted each other, and I never went back. And I was like, you know what? My anxiety lowered a little bit, and I was like, I think just the situation I was in before caused it, and I'm probably good now. And then I got with my new boyfriend, who is now my husband, and everything was going well with us for the first probably 6 months. It was, smooth sailing. And then things started to rise in me again. I was getting anxious. I was getting worried. I didn't know what he thought about me. I didn't know what he felt about me. And I was becoming more explosive again. And in the Bible, it talks about Corinthians? 2 Corinthians 10:5, where it says we need to take every thought captive and submit it to the Lord. The problem was I was speaking before I was capturing my thoughts. So I would just think them and spit them out right away. And it was just, so like when you hear yourself talk, you go, I might be a little crazy. And that's how I was feeling. But I just didn't understand why I felt that way. I was like, nothing wrong has happened to me, nothing, whatever. What's going on? And then TikTok and God combined did its magic. And then out of nowhere, everywhere on my For You page was attachment styles. I was like, what is this thing? Can you get away from me? And so finally I looked up what attachment styles are. And it caused me to look at my own anxiety in a new light. And I talked to my brother about it, and I was like, Isaiah, this is crazy. I learned this new thing about attachment styles and how it stems for your childhood. And I was like, but I'm confused because we were good. We had a good childhood. And he was like, yeah, but your traumas can be things that you don't remember. You don't know they happened to you. And suddenly your thoughts are formed around these things that you don't even know happened. Let's see, where are we going? I completely abandoned my notes. I just started talking. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So he also was mentioning that it can be from a couple different reasons, right? You're either too young to remember what it was. Looking back on an adult, you're like, that wasn't traumatic, so dismissed, right? Or it was so traumatic that you had trauma-induced amnesia, which is not my case. But some backstory from my childhood, my father was a physically and verbally abusive man to my mother and my brother. I don't know so much me because I was later down the line. I'm the youngest, so she protected us when she saw the pattern of abuse in my father, and she took us to California. We were from Alabama originally, and she moved out here when my grandmother moved out here with her husband, and she grew up being a single mother. She had to provide for us, so she was out at work a lot. She was, I would live at my grandparents', every other day, whatever. I was moving a lot. And you don't realize that those are forming patterns in your brain. I didn't know that moving often is a traumatic thing to a child. If you're not sitting in one place and you're like, this is my home, if your home and your safe place keeps changing, that's traumatic to that kid, and you don't know it. And me as an adult, I didn't know it. I was like, I have no hard feelings. I loved my life. I love my mother. I think she gave me a brilliant childhood. She did everything she could to love me. But, I guess my child brain took it and was like, that's a problem. Your childhood is not stable. And I brought that into my life with me. And now it creates my viewpoint of what my partner might be. I felt instability in my childhood growing up. Now I don't know how you're going to treat me. I don't know what you're thinking about me. And so I'm going to make assumptions. I'm going to think maybe you don't care about me as much and whatnot. So that's backstory. And now I get to get into the actual good stuff, the attachment styles themselves. So attachment styles are patterns we've learned on how to attach to people. And the basic idea is that, this is from, I got my sources from two places. There was help dot something, I don't know, where is it? Oh, helpguide.org. Or there was another one called Attachment Styles in Jesus by John Rice. So I looked at those two, and it was really cool. And here's what John Rice wrote to intro his article. He said, the basic idea is because of our relational experiences early in life, we have learned a pattern of attaching to people or not attaching to people in a pattern that, unless addressed, continues all throughout your life. It's deeply ingrained in your way of interacting with others, and we usually don't think of this behavior, often not even being aware of it at all. So it's not just a thought pattern, it's a behavior pattern. And it says, as we become aware of these problems or behaviors, we may find very healthy impulses or very unhealthy impulses. So there are 4 types of attachment styles. There's secure, which is our goal. This is like the standard for attachment styles. This is what you want to reach. And then we have the 3 negative ones. There's the anxious attachment style, which is what I was. It's what my grandmother was. If you've listened to her testimony about being jealous and anxious and wondering, do you even love me? That's anxious attachment style. Then there's avoidant dismissive attachment styles, which retreat from emotion. Usually when anxious and avoidant are put together, it can be a little explosive because we have one person who's, please, please, love me, love me. You don't love me, I need reassurance that you love me. And the other person's like, please stop asking me if you love me, and they'll retreat. And then there's the third kind, which is disorganized or fearful avoidant. And this stems from intense trauma that causes you to not think you're deserved or worthy of love. And so you are disorganized. Maybe you carry on some of the abusive patterns that trailed from your childhood, and now you've brought them into your adult life. So I wanted to go over just kind of the synopsis of each of these attachment styles, go in depth on them so that you can look at them and be like, oh, I think I fit in that one or this one. And this is not a cookie cutter, I'm this or I'm that. It's, you can either exhibit some of the things in it, all of the things in it. You can get some from avoidant, you can get some from anxious. You're a person made up of a lot of experiences, so you're going to have a lot of things going on. But these are the basic categories. So I'll start with anxious. It says, the anxious attacher needs others to make them feel okay about themselves. They're overly dependent, often clingy and demanding. They're desperate for others to approve them so that they can hold their head above the water. Please give me this approval so that I can stay afloat. And here are some signs that you could be an anxious attachment style person. You crave feelings of closeness and intimacy with your significant other, but you struggle to feel that you can truly trust or rely on them. Your relationship tends to overtake your life and you become fixated on it. You struggle to accept and recognize boundaries as you view space from your partner as a threat, and it provokes panic and anger and fear. You lack a sense of self-worth, and it relies heavily on how you view your being treated in the relationship. I feel like that one is important because I feel like I'm not worthy of all this, or I feel, really down in the dumps about myself. But whether you think good of me or not, it's how I perceive you think of me, right? So even though it was like how my grandmother and my grandfather, he was like, I love you. And she goes, well, I don't believe that you love me. And that's what anxious attachment style is. Whether it's true or not, you don't believe it. You don't believe that these people love you. And you constantly need reassurance and attention from your partner. And this causes you to be viewed as clingy or needy. You feel anxious or jealous when you're away from your partner, and you may use guilt or controlling behavior to keep them close. So these are behaviors you can look out for, thought patterns that you can look out for that you're like, okay, maybe I am an anxious attachment style. This roots from your caregiver being inconsistent in their parenting style. Sometimes they're engaged and responsive. Sometimes they're unavailable and distracted. So you get a flip-flop of this. So in my case, my mother worked a lot, right? She gave me all the love she could when she was home, but when she was at work, she was at work. She was like 12-hour days, come home, I'm gonna cook dinner for you guys and go to bed, right? But other days it was like, hey, this is my day dedicated to you guys. So I got that love, but it was inconsistent. She had it the whole time, but the way I viewed it was inconsistent. And that formed a pattern in my brain. So, moving on to the avoidant dismissive. These are the opposite of the anxious people. They find it difficult to tolerate emotional intimacy. They're usually people who value independence and freedom. They feel comfortable. They are very comfortable with themselves, and they're very uncomfortable with intimacy in relationships, closeness, being emotionally vulnerable. They really are like, ugh, they get stiffened by it. And they're viewed sometimes as distant and arrogant. Someone who, is very confident in themselves, but they are rejecting your emotions. So here are some keys that you might be avoidant dismissive. You're independent, content and caring for yourself as you don't feel you need others. When someone tries to get close to you, or the needier your partner becomes, the more you withdraw. You're uncomfortable with emotions. You may prefer fleeting and casual relationships as opposed to long-term ones. Or you pick partners who are equally independent and will keep their emotional distance from you. You may think that you don't need a close relationship. In reality, we all need connection. We're hardwired to need the connection of other people. You need love. That's ground basis. Whether you think you need it or not, you need it. And this comes from a caregiver being unavailable or rejecting you during your infancy. So your needs were never reliably met. They may have been there, but maybe they ignored your emotional needs. This causes you to emotionally distance yourself and have to self-soothe. So when you have a child whose emotional needs are not being met, like, oh, you need to toughen up, they're going to go, retreat, and fix themselves because they know you're not reliable. So this develops a pattern of, I'm going to bring this into my adulthood. I don't need you to help me regulate my emotions. I'm going to do it myself, period. And now you have people who are, it's usually women are the anxious and men are the avoidant dismissive. That's a very common combo, and those are usually those people break up fast. Those are the, I need you. I don't want you, but I want you to be near me. I don't want your emotions. Those people are crazy explosive, not individually, but together. It's wild. And then the last one is disorganized or fearful avoidant. I like to look at this as kind of the mix of the other two, but to a very extreme degree. So the disorganized never learned to self-soothe their emotions. So not only were their emotional needs not met, they never learned to do it on their own. They never found that independence to carry their own weight. And their relationships and the world around them feel frightening almost. They're scared they don't know what's going to happen, and they get very hard on themselves, where they get caught up in this pattern of, am I good enough? Am I good enough? I have to build myself to be worthy of love. I don't think I'm worthy of this. And then they put that expectation on you, and they expect you to feel the same way they're feeling. So this is likely caused by abuse or intensive trauma in your childhood, and they have the tendency to repeat the same abusive patterns in their relationships in the future. So here are some keys that you may be disorganized or fearful avoidant. You probably find relationships to be confusing or unsettling, swinging between emotional extremes with your partner. You may be insensitive towards your partner's feelings, being selfish and controlling, as you are just as hard on them as you are on yourself. You may refuse to take responsibility for your actions. You crave safety and security and intimacy, but you feel unworthy of love, and you're afraid of getting hurt again. So for me, the disorganized folks are very hurting. They're the ones who hurt very deeply, and then they lash it out on other people, right? That's kind of your like stereotypical bully where it's like, oh, if they're being mean to you at school, probably something's going on at home, right? And those people will carry that attitude and that lifestyle throughout their adulthood. And this is the causes. Your caregiver was likely had also unresolved trauma. So when somebody lives in that trauma and they grow up being that person, they'll instill that same thing into their kid. And this is where those generational cycles come in. And if you don't deal with your trauma and figure out what trauma causes which behavior, then you're going to carry that in, put it into your child's life, and then they're going to grow up and do the same thing. So the caregiver was likely chaotic and erratic due to their traumas, and this became a very confusing environment for the child, right? It's somebody who is flipping between these emotional extremes, and the child doesn't know. They've experienced intense fear from their parent, and they've experienced comfort, so they don't know which one their parent is going to provide for them. That's nice. My notes gave out, but that's okay. I think the internet broke. I'm going to pull up the last one on my phone because I'm only going over one more thing, and it's the secure attachment style, which is our goal. So maybe I should have gone over that one first, but this is where we're trying to get to. Bear with me. I can give you a synopsis from what I remember. The secure attachment style is content with separating from them. They're not afraid of emotional intimacy, right? I'm not a secure attachment style. I have a hard time knowing what I'm looking for. If only we had a printer. The secure attachment style. Well, it's not a charger issue. It's an internet issue. I watched my screen go.
Do you want that? Take a look at that.
Oh, wait, hold on. I think I have it right here.
You have it?
I do. Oh, God bless. Okay, thank you, Lord. You know what happened? I know exactly why that happened. It's because I forgot to pray before I started. I thought about it. I put it in my brain. I was like, I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to introduce myself, and then I introduced myself first. So you know what? I have my notes up, but let's take a moment for prayer because it's important. Okay, bow your heads. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all these wonderful people here. Thank you for the food that you blessed Kim to be able to make for us tonight. And I pray that tonight everyone either has heard something that they can take home with them and digest, or they will hear something that they can digest. And Lord, I pray that you work wonders in their life and that we will have a safe drive home and that we'll do everything that we can to strive to be more like you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, now that I've prayed, things will go well. Okay, the secure attachment style. So it's important to know that having a secure attachment style does not mean that you're perfect and that you will not have struggles in your relationship. It just means that you will be able to healthily solve them and you'll have healthy behaviors in your relationships. So secure relationships, you have enough security to be able to take responsibility for your own mistakes and your failings. You'll be able to seek help and support when you need help. That's a big one. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm good, I got it. I know all these tools, I know exactly how to help myself. That's where you start falling into the avoidant dismissive. You need to re-regulate, be like, hey, I need to talk to somebody. We're meant to confess to our brothers what we've done wrong, right? We're meant to go to people when we need emotional help. Those people can help you talk through your issues, guide your thoughts. Sometimes when you're sitting there thinking by yourself, you get all tangled up in your own words and your own thoughts. And to have somebody be able to ask you questions or guide you in which direction you're supposed to go is very helpful. So definitely don't forget about that. 5%. Here are some behaviors that you can notice in a secure relationship. You appreciate your own self-worth, and you're able to be intimate with yourself and your relationship. You're comfortable expressing your feelings, your hopes, and your needs. You find satisfaction in being with others and seek support and comfort from your partner, but you don't get overly anxious when you two are apart. You're similarly happy with your partner, and you rely on each other for support. You're able to maintain your emotional balance, seek healthy ways to manage conflict in a close relationship. When you're faced with disappointments, setbacks, or misfortunes in your relationships, you're resilient enough to bounce back. So that's our goal. That's what we want to strive for. Now, here's something that I noticed in reading about this, because one of the things that I looked at, I was like, how am I going to relate this to the Bible? I don't know that the Bible talks about this anywhere. So I literally typed in attachment styles and the Bible. And I looked at what it popped up. And it said attachment styles and Jesus. It was a whole article. I was like, awesome. And it basically was just everything describing what the attachment styles are. And then at the end, it talked about, so attachment styles, the negative ones at least, stem from how you think your partner's going to react, how you think other people think about you. You're looking outward and trying to self-regulate and fix it. You're like, okay, I need to preemptively get ahead of this. But attachment styles come in all relationships. And we have to think about, how are we attached to Christ, right? Are we looking at our Father expecting him to not love us? Are we looking at him being like, well, I don't know if he's going to hate me today, right? Are we looking at him like, well, I don't know if he's going to provide all my needs for me, so I need to provide them for myself? How are we looking at Christ and who he is to us? Because if we can trust in who he is, and we can trust in what he provides for us, and we know that he is a stable person to look to, we should be secure enough in our relationship with him to rely on him. We should be able to soothe through him. We should be able to seek him and not feel worried about how he's going to respond to us, because that's what he's there for. He made us. He knows how to help us, I promise. So here is what I want to send you home with, some tools. The biggest one that I found to be helpful in all this, especially when you're kind of cycling through trying to figure out, okay, well, where are my roots? Like, what caused all this? Why do I even think like this? Or you're thinking about, what behaviors you have. I recommend writing. I think it's a great thing. I never really did it and took up with it until recently when I was studying for this. I literally spent yesterday just thinking. I told Kiki, I was like, I thought yesterday, and I wrote today. But while I was thinking, I was like, I am losing my thoughts in the middle of my sentences. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So I started writing it down, and then I was like, it is really easy to fill pages with words. And then as I was writing, I thought, this is helping me a lot. And here are some things that I noticed about writing. Writing forces you to slow down your thinking. So if you think your brain is running too fast, you can only write as fast as you can write. You can't write faster than you're thinking, that's for sure. And when you slow down and have to sit and write everything out, you start to notice that you can correct yourself as you're writing, number one. Number two, if you truly sit and write down everything that you're thinking exactly, you will notice that when you read it back to yourself, you can pick out the mistakes and be like, why am I thinking like that? Circle that sentence. What the heck was that all about? Expand on it, right? And those, let's see. Oh my gosh, yeah. So it's a great way to just put your thoughts in a tangible form. And have you ever thought, like, you've been talking to someone and you're like, I think I could fix their life. I think that if they told me all their problems, I could probably find a solution for all of them. I think it comes from hearing them. And when you're just thinking silently to yourself, you don't hear yourself. If you write down your thoughts and read them back to you, I promise you, you'll be shocked at some of the things that you read. You'll be like, did I really think that? You're rereading and you're like, I don't know that that came from my brain. And then you can look at it and be like, okay, that's wrong, but also think, hey, these are good. That's good, that's good. We want to repeat the good behaviors, and we want to cancel out the bad behaviors. So I highly recommend writing. So one task that I want to give you is dedicate like 10, 20 minutes of time, whatever it might be. Designate a time, set a timer. Sit there, and every thought that you have, put it on paper. And at the end of the 20 minutes, read it back to yourself. And then just go from there. I promise you, once you start that, you'll realize that you have a very rich thought life, and you just don't know it. So, writing is a great one. If you feel like writing you don't have the time for it or whatever, seek someone else out for help, someone you can talk to. Therapy is great. It didn't work for me. It probably would if I went to someone else. But therapy those people are designed to listen to you talk and guide your thinking. That's what writing does for when you're by yourself. But if you want someone to do that for you, therapy is great. And you know what? Therapy is expensive. So if you can't afford therapy, go to Celebrate Recovery. I fully believe that they can help you guys. Because not only do they know how to navigate thoughts and behaviors and habits, like they said, habits, what is it? Hurts, habits, hang-ups? They know. They get it. Number one. Number two, they have a curriculum, a program, steps that you can take to get somewhere. And they have those steps, and they've copy and pasted it throughout the entire country. And they copy and pasted it for a reason. It works. It really does work. I haven't attended CR myself other than like doing sound sometimes, but they have some very powerful step studies, programs that you can answer questions, do inventory systems, really trace things back to where they're found, and then they give you tools to help you move forward, tools to break your habits. And that's what attachment styles are about, behavior patterns that you built that you had no choice in building. So now you can go somewhere that can help you break those habits, right? So let me see if I have anything else, because I'm pretty sure that's it. I wanted to leave you guys with tools to make sure that you knew that you were not just being talked at, that you have something to take home with you. Yeah, that's all. So I'm going to open it up for discussion, I guess. Is there anything anybody has to say or questions or something? Thank you. I tried really hard. I was very nervous. Yeah. Oh.
And like how we view our relationship with our caretakers
Yeah.
made a lot of sense of why, if you have the inconsistency, why it would be hard to sometimes believe God's
Yeah.
not,
And
I
it's-
know God's always listening, but maybe not going to come through.
Yeah, when you think about a perfect God, he really is perfect. And if your caregiver was inconsistent, that's why a lot of people usually people who had poor fathers have a very hard time understanding the fact that God loves them and truly does love them and will do anything for them. And yeah, it's important to understand that he's not an inconsistent caregiver. He's a caregiver that will always provide for your needs. He will always love you. And that's why I loved the series we did about the names of God, because we really got to dive deep. What are these names? What do they mean? And when you look at all those names, it's all the ways that he is a great father. It really is. He's there for you. He provides. He's your shelter. He's everything, right? So that's something that you can really rely on. And people, whether it be I'm afraid he's not going to love me, or hey, this is too much emotion, I need to step away. We know that he's a safe place, and he'll remain consistent. He'll never change, right? So we know that if we step away, we can come back to him and be like, hey, I know you're still the same. I might be a little different, but now I'm ready for help, right? He's there. Okay. Sorry. Is there anything else?